Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about anatomy of the heart. What a beautiful organ, eh? It beats about 72 times a minute, about 100,000 times a day. You can only imagine. And you put everything together for a year, so this organ beats about 3 million times a year. That's such an amazing organ we have. We only have one heart. We gotta take care of that. It's very important. Now today I'm going to talk about the anatomy of the heart and how it's designed on the inside, how the blood circulates all over the place. Sometimes it gets complicated because I remember as a student when I studied about the heart, it was the most complicated topic. Like I could not understand. It was so complicated inside the structure. When you cut the heart inside, there's so many chambers and valves and there's blood vessels like all over the place. Understanding how the blood flows in and out was quite complicated when I studied as a student. But I found a way how to kind of break this down in an easier way to understand, especially for students with the very first time learning about the heart. I want you all to know, use this method, the one I'm going to show you today, and then you can always go back to your textbook and look at the pictures and understand how the heart functions based on what I'm going to teach today. All right, so let's get into the details and see how it works. I'm going to put some pictures and diagrams to make things a little easier for you to understand. Okay, right. First, before we get into the structure of the heart, what I'm going to show you is understanding these blood vessels. These are very, very important. Like when you take the circulatory system, so you got blood vessels named like artery, you got vein, you got arterial, you got venule, and you got capillaries. So understanding why these are termed this way, the definition and how it relates to the circulatory system is very important. Now, is a very important rule when it comes to the heart is, first thing is knowing the sides. So as I said here, this side is the left side. You got to understand, if you mess up the sides, you're going to mess up everything. This is the left side. This is the right side. Okay. The rule when it comes to the heart, this is very important. Okay. Now, the arrows kind of shows you here. If any blood vessel is going to bring the blood into the heart, watch this arrow going in. That is always going to be a vein. Keep that in mind. Any blood vessels bringing blood into the heart is a vein. And you can see here is blood leaving the heart. If any blood vessel is going to take the blood away from the heart, that's an artery. So now you guys know arteries have a rule when it comes to the heart is any blood vessel taking the blood out of the heart is an artery. Any blood vessel bringing the blood into the heart is a vein. Okay. Now these two are very simple. When arteries branch out, like the tree branches, they're called arterioles. And the same way, the veins also have smaller branches. They're called venule. And when the blood vessels will get so tiny, you can't even see with your eyes. They're so microscopic, so small near the cells of the body for exchange of oxygen and nutrients. Those blood vessels are called capillaries. So capillaries are the tiniest blood vessels in your body. Okay. Now take a look here. So a quick understanding of how it works. So I'm going to start with on this side. As you already know, I'm going to start with the right side. So can you all see the blood coming into the heart here? So this is a vein. I'm going to call this a vein. So there's no doubt. So you can see it's bringing the blood into the heart. Now, keep in mind that anytime the blood is coming into the heart, this blood has less oxygen. So it's being used up. I'm going to call it the impure blood. It's not the right word to say, but this is impure. So this blood is coming in with less oxygen. Now take a look here. Here's the blood leaving the heart. Every time, remember, the blood is leaving the heart from here. This is the blood which has rich in oxygen, right? So because it's leaving, this is called an artery. I'm going to call this an artery. And take a look here. Now the arteries are branching. You can see a small branch here. So I'm going to call this, of course, it's called the arteriole. There we go. It's a small branch. And then arterioles, they bring the blood close to the cells. And you can see all these tiny little blood vessels right here surrounding the cells. They're called capillaries. I'm just going to put here C for that. It's a long word. I don't want to write it here. So here's capillaries. You can see here the cells are going to use all the blood which has good in oxygen and nutrients. And then the same blood is going to send back via this tiny tube. Now I already told you, when veins are small, they're called venule. So these are venules. And then they're going to branch into this larger vein. You can see here. And this vein is going to take the blood back into the heart. That's why this is called a vein. And you can see this is a little bit of a circulation, how it works. And it's constantly revolving around this way. So, important rule, you got to remember, Any blood vessels bringing the tubes which bring the blood into the heart, they're called vein. The tubes which take the blood out of the heart, they're called arteries. When arteries branch, they're called arterioles. When veins, they have small branches, they're called venules. Okay? So this understanding is important. Now let's go and study about the structure of the heart inside with a lot more complex of all the other blood vessels within there. All right, so let's just dive down into the structure of the heart now. So I kind of drew this diagram even before the video. I don't need spending drawing all this during the video. It just takes too much of time, okay? So let's understand. I put some pointers here, like what are the different areas, what you need to know when it comes to the internal structure of the heart and the blood vessels. And I divided them into two different colors, indicating everything on blue is kind of related to the blood which has less oxygen. Everything in red indicates that's the area where the blood has picked up the oxygen and the blood has more oxygen in it, okay? So, okay, now let's understand how this works. As I said one more time, very important, this is the left side. Keep in mind, this is the left side of the heart and this is the right side. Whenever you're reading even from the textbook, remember, just look for yourself to the left. So this is my left and that's why this is the left too, okay? Don't mix up the sides. Okay, take a look here. When you cut the heart inside, and that's the very first thing you notice is, so there are 4 chambers. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 chambers. Chambers meaning they're like socket-like areas where you can hold blood in it. So each chamber can have a lot of blood in it. Like you can hold it in place for a while, and then it's going to keep moving the blood flowing into the areas too. So these 4 chambers have a name. Let's do this. The top 2 chambers, they have the same name. They're called atrium. You can see here, it's called an atrium, okay? But it's divided into left and right. Now, no reason I put here, the LA refers to left atrium. I think it's going to be here. So this is left atrium and this is right atrium. That's why I put RA and LA. Take a look at the bottom. The bottom 2 chambers, they're called ventricles. So when I say ventricle, once again, there's a left and there's a right. So the left is called the left ventricle. On the right, you have the right ventricle. That's why I put here RV, and all the names are all here on the side here. So once again, 2 chambers on the top, 2 chambers at the bottom, 2 chambers at the top called atrium. The both bottom ones are called ventricle. Left atrium, right atrium. Left ventricle, right ventricle. That's it. So you got the chambers, perfect. Now take a look here. There's a thick wall in the middle of the heart. You can see it. This is the it's called the septum. That's what it's called. Septum means to say that it's like a wall. The blood from the right and the left cannot mix with each other. This is why if you notice some babies are born with a hole in the heart. You might have heard of that, where the blood could mix back and forth. Usually there is a hole, but when in a fetal level, but when the baby is born, the hole will close off. There's absolutely no connection between the left and the right. Okay, so keep in mind, there's no connection. There's a thick, big wall. All right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start from the left side and I'm going to move, I'm going to start from the right side, my mistake. I'm going to start from the right side and I'm going to move into the left side, okay? Let's start from here and see what these are. I'm going to choose a correct pen, like color pen indicating, for example, take a look here. I'm going to start with the right atrium. Do you see there are 2 blood vessels bringing the blood into the heart? Now, we already studied they're called veins, right? Any blood vessels bringing in. So I'm going to put these arrows kind of indicating the direction. You can see here, the arrows are pointing into the heart, indicating these 2 are veins. Now look at the color, it's blue, indicating this blood has less oxygen, right? Now these 2, even though they're called veins, they are so large in size, they gave a specific name for this. There's one on the top, one on the bottom. In medical terms, you have studied anything on the top is superior, anything at the bottom is inferior. So they call the top vein the superior vena cava. Take a look here. So that's a superior vena cava, the one on the top. The one at the bottom is inferior vena cava. So you can see they both bring down the blood which has less oxygen. The superior brings all the blood from the head, neck, and all the regions. The inferior vena cava brings all the blood from the lower parts of the body into the chamber. Take a look here. You know what this chamber is? It's a right atrium. So now you know both the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, they bring the blood into the right atrium. You can see here, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, blood enters the right atrium. That's why I put this in order so it's very easy to follow. So now the blood is all in the right atrium. So from here, the blood is going to move down. Take a look here. So when this chamber compresses, so what's going to happen? The blood is going to move down into the bottom chamber, which is the right ventricle. You already know that. Now, you got to notice the heart. You might have heard of heart having valves. The heart has 4 valves. Let's talk about the first valve. The first valve is right here. So what is a valve? A valve is like a block here in between the 2 chambers. I'm not sure you can see my finger, so you can see here. So when the blood needs to flow, the valve will open and then the blood will flow into the chamber. And then when it's all done, it'll close. That means the blood cannot go backwards. So keep in mind, the valve situated in between the right atrium and the right ventricle. You can see here, I put it as tri, but it's actually called tricuspid valve. The reason it's called tri is because it has 3 cusps. You can see my finger here. It's like 3 cusps which open and close. When it closes off like that and opens like that. It's because of the 3 cusps. They called it tricuspid. I couldn't put the diagram here as 3. It's very difficult to put a 2-dimensional, and it's a 3-dimensional. I can't put it on here, right? So keep in mind that you got the tricuspid valve. So the blood enters the right ventricle via this valve. The valve opens, blood flows, the valve shuts. So now you can see all the blood is now situated in the right ventricle. Okay? Now, in a typical textbook, you notice there's a tube from the right ventricle, but I'm going to draw it in a way it's not exactly how it's located, but this is just for understanding purpose. Okay? So watch here. So there is a tube which is going to, I'm going to use this color, but I'm going to use black for the tubes. All right, so there is a tube. I'm going to draw it this way, all the way out. I'm just going to take this out so it's easy to understand how it goes. So y'all see that? So there is a tube which is going to take, I'm going to bring the color back. I'm going to put these blue colors. Take a look here. The blood from the right ventricle, and it's going to flow out of this blood vessel. Take a look at that. So it's going out. Right? Now, this blood vessel also has a valve right here at the end. So that means the valve opens, the blood flows into the tube, the blood cannot come back because this valve is also shut. Okay? Now, the name of this tube, the reason why they call it, I'll tell you why, because this tube eventually goes to the lungs. Just notice? So this blood is going to the lungs. Look at the color, still has less oxygen. That's why I put blue. The lungs has a specific medical term called pulmonary. So they call this vessel a pulmonary artery. And guess why they call it an artery? Because it's taking the blood out of the heart. And what blood is that? The blood which has less oxygen in it. Now it's going all the way to the lung. That's why I put it here. From the right ventricle, you can see here, the blood goes via this valve. The valve is also called a pulmonary valve. And then it goes into this tube. This tube is called the pulmonary artery, which I put it right here. And it's going all the way to the lungs, which I put it right here. See, it's all going to the lungs. Now, the reason, why is it going to the lungs? You all know already. When you breathe in the air contains a lot of oxygen. So now the lungs has all the oxygen in it. So this is the reason why this blood vessel is taking the blood to the lungs to add more oxygen into it. Now the blood is going to be a purified form where it's going to pick up a lot of oxygen from the lungs. And guess what? From the lungs, the blood is going to come back into this chamber. Once again, it's only for the learning purpose. I'm putting all these tubes this way. In your textbook, typically it notes like this, but it's easier to understand. Once you get the picture, it's easier. Take a look here. Now, the color is going to change. The lungs are finished doing this job by adding more oxygen to the blood. Now, watch here. Now, this blood has lots of oxygen. I'm putting the color red. And take a look here. It's bringing the blood into the left atrium. Now we have come to the left side. It's come to the left atrium. So what did they call this blood vessel? Watch carefully. Again, the lungs. The medical term is pulmonary. They still call this blood vessel also pulmonary, but because it's bringing the blood into the heart. We already learned the rule. Any blood vessels bringing into the heart is a vein. So they call this the pulmonary vein, which is right here. Look at that color. I put it in red here too. Pulmonary vein, which brings in the good blood, the oxygenated blood into the left atrium. All right, let's keep tracking, huh? So let's bring that blood all the way down here. Now the blood is going to flow. You guys know where, you would have guessed it. It's going to come into this chamber, the bottom chamber. From left atrium, the good blood is going to move into the left ventricle. But not so fast. There is a valve. As you had a tricuspid valve on the right side, there is a valve on the left side. It's called the bicuspid valve. Take a look here. I put it right there. Bicuspid valve. It's an acronym. I put as bi, so understand it's a bicuspid. Now, I already told you the reason why this was called tri is because it had 3 cusps. The reason why this is called a bi, because it only has 2 cusps, right? So now you see that's why it's called a bicuspid. So the valve opens, lets all the blood into the left ventricle, and then the valve is shut. Now the blood can't go back into the left atrium. So now it's all sitting in the left ventricle. Now, once again, what blood is that? It's just going to come down. Look at the color. It's still red. Now, the blood has to leave the heart. Okay, a large artery. This is the biggest in your body. In your textbook, you'll notice the artery just goes up and curls down. But just for understanding purpose, I'm going to put that right here. Take a look at that line. Look how thick and big I put it here. Now the blood is going to, I'm going to put another valve. The blood's going to flow out. I'm just going to take this black portion out so you can understand how it works. And you can see now the blood is going to exit the heart via this largest artery. Now, why am I calling it artery? You already know the rule. If a blood vessel takes the blood out of the heart, it's an artery. You can see it. So now you see the blood, oxygenated blood is going out of this blood vessel via this valve. Now, what is the name of this blood vessel? Of course, this is an artery, no doubts. It's leaving the heart, but there's a specific name called aorta. And aorta is the largest artery in your body taking oxygenated blood out of your heart. Look at that color, it's red. Via this valve, that valve is called an aortic valve. I didn't put that here, but remember that's your 4th valve. So this valve opens, lets all the blood go out of the artery, and it will shut, which means the blood cannot go backwards into the left ventricle, right? All right, so there we go. I hope I made this nice and clear for you with these nice colors. Kind of makes more of a choice. Now, kind of certain things I just want to break down for everyone so that you understand certain important things. So, how many valves did we study? 4 valves, okay? What are these 4 valves? One more time. Let's do here. So the valve in between the right side atrium and the ventricle, it's a tricuspid. The valve in between the left atrium, the left ventricle, is bicuspid. The valve at the entrance of this pulmonary artery is called the pulmonic valve. The valve right at the edge of that aorta before the blood exits, it's called the aortic valve. So you got 4 valves. Now you understand when the heart beats, how do you get the sound lubbed up? Lubbed up. That's the closing and the opening of these 4 valves, how you get the sound lubbed up. So now you go to the doctor. If they find if your valves are not doing a good job, if they're not closing completely, if blood starts to seep through the little gaps, that's when the doctor's going to say you may have a heart murmur. A heart murmur indicates that you have an ineffective valve which is not shutting tight. Is that clear? So those are the 4 valves. So once again, let's do a quick recap. Are y'all ready? All right. We started on the right side. So now y'all know 2 big veins, superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. The both are bringing in. Of course, I'm going to get the right color here. Oops. I mixed up my colors. Okay. They both are bringing in, of course, you can see here, the blood, which has less oxygen. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, bringing the blood into the right atrium. From the right atrium, I'm just going to put that over here. And from, you can see here, from the right atrium, the impure blood moves to the right ventricle via the tricuspid valve. From the right ventricle, the blood moves out of the heart through the pulmonary artery via the pulmonic valve, and it goes all the way to the lungs. The lungs will do the job, add more oxygen into the blood, and now you can see the blood which is getting out of the lungs. Now it's going to enter the left side of the heart. So this blood vessel is called the pulmonary vein because it's bringing the blood into the heart. And then it enters the left atrium. And from the left atrium, the blood now is going to go into the left ventricle via the bicuspid valve. You can see there's a valve here. And then from the left ventricle, the blood is going to go out of the heart via this largest artery called aorta, via this valve called aortic valve. I hope this is clear. So this is how the circulation works. This is just for understanding. I did the left and the right, but technically when the heart beats, it always beats together. For example, both the top atriums will pump. It'll push the blood into the ventricles. And when ventricles contract, guess what happens? The blood leaves. The bad blood or the impure blood leaves and goes to the lungs, and the good blood goes out of the heart at the same time. So it's like contraction, and the ventricles contract as well. Okay, so this is a bit of a circulation of how the heart functions. Try to understand these tubes. It kind of makes more sense if we understand the order. That's why I put it here. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, right atrium, tricuspid valve, right ventricle, pulmonary valve, pulmonary artery, goes to the lungs. From the lungs, pulmonary vein brings the good blood back to the left atrium. From the left atrium, via the bicuspid valve, goes to the left ventricle and then goes out of the heart by aorta. Just the same circulation. I put it in the order here. All right. I hope this video helps all the students to ace your next cardiovascular or circulatory system exam. Please put your comments at the bottom and see if you guys can subscribe to my channel. If you have any requests on any particular lectures or videos related to the medical science or physiotherapy or even anything to do with anatomy and physiology, I'll be more than happy. So put it on the comments. I'll try to put some videos together. All right. All the best, everyone.